Hello and welcome to Coding with Sahana Lesson 2. In this lesson, we will first review what we learned in Lesson 1. Then, we will learn about what variables are and how they work, and we will work on some problems on W3 schools. Finally, I will introduce the challenge of the week. This week's lesson on variables is crucial to your further understanding of Python, so if you have any questions, please comment down below or email me. For the first part of our lesson, let's do a review problem. Our assignment is to write a one-line program that determines the quotient and remainder when 21 and 6 are divided, and we must use the double slash and percent symbol in our answer. Our output should say 21 divided by 6 is 3 with the remainder of 3. First, let's use our print statement. Inside our print statement, we will type, in quotes, 21 divided by 6 is, because this is a statement that we want to be copied into the results window. Remember, when you have something in quotations and parentheses, Python will copy whatever is in the quotations and print it on the results window. Next, we will put 21 /6 to show the integer value of 21 divided by 6 rounded down to the nearest integer. Now, we will include the string with a remainder of because we need that statement in our output. Finally, we will code 21%6 to calculate the remainder from dividing 21 and 6. Now, we will put commas in between to show the spaces. When we run the code, we can see that our output is 21 divided by 6 is 3, with the remainder of 3. This matches our wanted output exactly. Now let's learn about variables. A variable is a name or label that is assigned to a value. Variables can be assigned to integers or whole numbers, any decimal numbers, strings, which are words, letters, punctuation marks, etc., or booleans. A boolean is a function that outputs true and false statements. However, you are not required to know this yet, and we will cover booleans in our following videos. These 4 types of values are known as classes in Python, and int, float, stir, and bool are the abbreviations used in Python when coding. When it comes to naming your variables, you can name your variable anything. However, in Python, variable names can only use letters, digits or numbers, and the underscore symbol. But variable names cannot start with a digit. As you can see, these are some examples of good variable names on the left. But let me explain why each of the variable names on the right will not be accepted by Python. First, since 7th round starts with a number, in this case 7, this name will not be accepted by Python. My percent symbol will not be accepted by Python because variables cannot have any symbols except the underscore. So percent will not work. Similarly, in the last 2 examples, a dash and the hashtag symbol will not be accepted by Python and will result in an error. As we saw in Lesson 1, Python operators are used to perform operations. If you need a refresher, you can refer to Python for Beginners Lesson 1. However, Python allows us to perform operations on variables also. In the chart, we see that we can do addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, exponents, and as we covered in the last video, integer division and modulo, or finding the remainder. But how do you add or multiply variables? Also, when it says addition, concatenation for strings, what does it mean? Let's see. Concatenation is the technical term for linking or joining things. In Python, we can concatenate strings or join strings using the plus symbol. For example, I created a variable that I named A, and I set A equal to the string Harvard University. Remember, a string is a letter, word, sentence, etc. Next, I created a variable that I named B, and I said B is equal to the word neighborhood. Under this, in my print statement, I coded A, comma, is in my, comma, B plus, period. Let's break this statement down. A is Harvard University, so the first part of our phrase is Harvard University. Next, I put a comma because when we put commas in print statements, they act as a space. Then I coded the string is in my in quotes because, as I said in the last video, when we put something in quotes, it copies it exactly in the results window. Next, I used a comma to make a space between this string and my variable B. Finally, I used A plus to concatenate or join B to a period. As a result, our window outputted the sentence, Harvard University is in my neighborhood. One might ask, why not just put the whole sentence into quotations and put this into a print statement, which is a very good point. If my assignment were to output this statement, that's probably what I would do. But I use this approach for the purpose of demonstrating the use of variables, commas, and the plus symbol. Variables can be a very tricky concept. However, with practice, you will be able to code with variables effortlessly. Now for the idea of multiplying integers by variables. In Python, when we want to repeat a phrase more than once, we can use the multiplying operation. For example, in the window, I have a variable I named A, and I set A equal to the string hello. My assignment is to print the word hello 3 times without any spaces. But the challenge is that I cannot use any strings in my print function. What am I going to do? Inside my print statement, I'm going to code 3 times A. As you can see in the results window, the word hello is printed 3 times without spaces in the middle. Some of you might have been wondering what the hashtag above my code was. In Python, we can use hashtags to make comment statements. Comment statements are notes in the program that do not affect the code, but help the reader of the code to understand or locate the meaning of the code. In this example, I used a comment statement to show that in the following lines I will be naming my variables A and B. As a coder, it's good practice to add comment statements to your program. On a broader scale, variables are used very frequently in Python. For example, in my data visualization Python project, I was using a dataset on airline satisfaction to measure the amount of people who booked flights of different distances. In my code, you can see one place where I used a variable that I named df to represent my data frame. This just goes to show that even though variables may seem like a very small element, they impact how data scientists visualize and interpret data. Now let's look at practice Python problems with variables. Now let's do our Python variable practice. In this assignment, we need to create a program that uses the variables time A to represent Adia's time of 31.25 seconds and time B to represent Benji's time of 15.625 seconds. We can label each one of our times with comment statements for clarity. Next, we have to create two more variables, speed A and speed B, which are used to calculate Adia and Benji's rate at running 100 meters. We can use their speed by dividing their distance and time. Finally, the program must output as follows. Let's follow the steps to complete the assignment. First, I will create my variables time A and time B and assign them their respective values. Second, we will create two more variables, speed A and speed B, to calculate their speeds. Since speed equals distance over time, we can say that speed A is equal to 100 divided by time A. Similarly, we can calculate speed B by doing 100 divided by time B. Finally, for our output, we have to make three different print statements because our output has three different lines. For our first statement, we can first type, Adia and her dog Benji ran 100 meters. Since our first line of code does not involve our variables, we can put our entire statement in quotations and make a string. For the next print statement, we can type Adia's rate was, and then a comma to show a space, speed A, and then a plus symbol to show that there's no space, and then in quotes, meters per second period. For the last print statement, we can do something similar. So we will type Benji's rate was, comma, speed B plus, and meters per second period. Now let's run our code. Wait, we have an error that says unsupported operand types for plus, float, and string. If you take a close look at our last two print statements, we added our speeds to meters per second. And when calculating our variables, our output would be a float because it's a decimal number. In Python, print statements, we cannot add together two values of different classes, like an integer and string, or in this case, a float and a string. To convert a value to a different class, we can put parentheses around the value outside, and outside it, we can name the class we want to convert it to. Since we cannot convert letters into a float, let's convert our speed floats into strings so we can concatenate them with meters per second. Now let's run our code. So I put speed A and speed B in a string function to make them into strings. Now, when we ran the code, we got our expected output. Before we finish today's lesson, I'm going to introduce the challenge of the week. So at the end of each week, I will introduce a challenge problem based off of our lesson, and you all can work on it over the course of the week. In the next lesson, I will go over how I would approach the problem, and we will complete the problem step by step. In these challenges, I might include a skill or function that we have not covered yet, but you all can do your own research and use the hints I will provide to solve the problem. It is completely fine if you're having trouble solving these problems, as they are just a challenge. When doing research, I would suggest using the W3 School's website because it will provide many examples and provide information on a wide range of Python functions. For this week's challenge of the week, you will create a program using 5 variables that correspond to happy, 2, computer science, and 4. The outputs 27, 15, 2b, and 4u should be made using calculations with the variables. The program should output through 2 separate lines, and the output should be as follows. My 2 hints for this assignment are to remember to use the string, integer, and float functions to change the class of an item, and to include the len function to find the length of a string. Good luck! Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and click on the bell icon for notifications on my next video.